There are other interesting projects that don't include themselves in the network state that I find very interesting, and they're sometimes controversial. The big one, obviously, is NEOM, which the most controversial part of it is the Line City, which I've been following for a while. I've made some very accurate predictions about it. I don't know at this point what will happen with it. I'm still rather bullish on it, despite a lot of people being bearish. The port at NEOM is very interesting. There's a port for the city, and that's actually really probably one of the most exciting projects. In America, you have, I think it's important because of all these ambitious projects to think about scale. So some of them are small and some of them are big. And then a lot of people have also pointed out on their blogs that there's the other aspect, which is a lot of these projects are not actually permanent. They're temporary. And a lot of the excitement in the space is of pop-up villages. So I'm very excited about what's going to be happening in Chiang Mai and to a parallel extent in Bangkok, sort of, because a lot of people are migrating to Bangkok for, there's a conference there as well as a bunch of other pop-ups after the sort of October, November month in Chiang Mai. And I'm interested in it because it's a lot of different pop-ups, not just one. So there's a confluence of people, talent, and also, to some extent, true diversity of vision, because some of the pop-ups, I've very closely watched all the pop-ups, even while they're going on. And, some of the pop-ups seem to be more of marketing themselves as like a Club Med / health resort. Some are very longevity focused. There's not a lot you're going to build in 2 to 6 weeks. Most developers will say it takes anywhere from 3 months to build a small, MVP project. Maybe a little less, but not when you're constantly, embroiling yourself in all sorts of cool community stuff. And, so the pop-ups are interesting, but the question is what to learn from them and where to go from them. They may have their own temporary business model, which I'm very interested in on its own right. And I just came from Burning Man, which is, essentially a month to build and 9 days for people to enjoy. Some people come for less time, some people stay for longer time. And it has a really interesting sort of ecosystem. It's changed, it's grown, and it's very real, which is why I'm interested in it, and a lot of people are. There's a lot of people who talk about continuously network state projects, whether it's pop-ups or more permanent stuff, but just going to Burning Man and seeing here's a pop-up that actually has a history of enormous growth, lots of people. It started small, it had certain precepts, and it got big, and it changed with time, and it's real. It's a very real logistical thing, and that's, I think, the most impressive thing. In New York City, I was just on Wards Island, and there's these huge tents with people that have been there for 2 years. I used to walk around that island all the time and bike to it, and it's a great place to escape the island of Manhattan to another smaller island that has its own little sort of wildlife refuge there, the marshes, and it has a lot of stuff there. But now the entire island is sort of swamped with people because there's a few thousand people that are just living in these giant tents permanently. Wow. It's been a few years. It's very expensive. And they bring, just like anywhere where people are living, they have their e-bikes and their scooters and mopeds, and there's a lot of generators and police presence. So you see what permanent presence does is very different than something like Burning Man. Burning Man would be a totally different place if it lasted 2 months as opposed to 9 days. So there's logistics, sanitation, there's a lot of real world reality, water, sanitation, power, and then there's people getting along.
For sure.
The social aspect. So from the short term to the long term, from shorter term pop-ups and settlements to longer term stuff, all of that interests me. The entire sort of way that it interacts interests me. And I think the part that seems the low-hanging fruit for people in the network state area and DeSci is like, because this is slow crypto, people have to focus more on collaboration because they're trying to build a synthesis. They're trying to sort of synergistically put together something that's going to be much bigger than any one project. And so collaboration, I think, is really the issue there. A lot of people talk about the circular economy and circular resources. And this is like a typical observation. People at Zuzulu spent so much money when they first went there with Vitalik a year and a half ago. They could have easily bought a hotel somewhere else that was like cheap and all just smushed into it, as opposed to having a great time doing something temporary and having more resources and bigger hotel rooms, stuff like that. That might be an exaggeration, but circular economics is like spending money in a way where it is moves forward, whether it's to someone in your network or temporarily to yourself and your people, so that you can help others and enjoy your resources by just spending money and letting it go into someone else's network. It's not circular, right? It's being sort of lost, and in that sense, you're just plugging holes in the ship. If you call it a ship, that's the hard part. Is this a ship or is it not a ship? And it's not exactly clear. It's more like a flotilla or a caravan, and people come and go as they please, right? So
Right.
it's a tough one.
Do you believe that there will be groups of people migrating to these new settlements, let's say, and really getting along with each other for a long run? Or do you think there will be like micro migrations, people testing different communities and figuring out what's their home?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. I mean, I think what we're seeing on a grander scale, and this is sort of very macro, which is, I don't know, people go into the macro mode. A lot of people do it a lot, and it seems to can be wishy-washy because no one knows the future. But it looks like the world, at